Today, we're taking a look at this entry-level Swiss-made dress watch from Tissot. Jody over at Gentlemen Watch would call this a Gada watch. Go anywhere, do anything. It's dressy enough to wear with a suit and yet casual enough to wear with shorts. However, this is the Quartz version, which means you never have to wind it. Or in other words, a Gada watch. Go anywhere, do anything, always ready. This dress watch is from Tissot's Gentlemen collection. This is model number T1274101605100. At the time of this video, you can find this watch at the Amazon US site for $269 US or the Tissot site for $375. Hey everyone, welcome back to Eric's Everyday Watches. As always, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. This watch has a very attractive traditional appearance to it, as you would expect from a collection named Gentlemen. Now the case is 316L stainless steel with a diameter coming in at a very nice size, 40 millimeters, not including the crown. For a lug-to-lug distance, we have a respectable 48 millimeters. There's no problem at all wearing this on my 7-inch wrist. This watch has a dual finish to it, with the fixed bezel being a high polished as well as the chamfered edge where the top and the sides of the case meet. Otherwise, this watch has been given a nice brushed finish to it, and that brushing does appear to be nice and uniform throughout. Everything is nice and smooth to the touch. There are no sharp edges or corners anywhere on this case. And there is a nice contrast between the two finishings with that high polished chamfered edge accenting the length of the case. From the side we can see there's very little downturn to the lugs, and it is apparent right from the start that this is indeed a quartz watch, and it is very thin with a thickness of just under 9 millimeters. This should easily slip underneath a dress shirt. On the back of the watch, there is a snap-on case back with text that reads Tissot 1853, stainless steel, water resistant 100 meters or 330 feet, and sapphire crystal. Because that's how Tissot does it. They seem to always give you a sapphire crystal on their watches. And that 100 meters of water resistance should be more than enough on a dress watch. And inside that case, we have the Swiss-made ETA caliber F06115. That is a 3-0 movement with approximately a 5-year battery life and an end-of-life battery indicator. It also has a frequency of 32,768 Hz. It is a 3-hand movement with the date window at the 3 o'clock position. Now this movement is also equipped with what ETA refers to as heavy drive, which is a sophisticated anti-shock technology. This movement has been on the market since roughly 2019. The crown at the 3 o'clock position is signed with the Tissot T and is approximately 5.5 millimeters in width and 4 millimeters in depth, which seems appropriate for this case. Now there are no crown guards here. It is a simple push-pull crown. Pulling it out to the first position sets the date, and pulling it out to the second position sets the time. Now let's move on to the face of the watch. Starting on the outside, we have a series of, for lack of a better word, small lume dots. And I am hesitant to use that word. Not small or dots, but lume, because those dots barely light up at all. But they are found on the outside of the indices all the way around the dial. Inside of that, we have a white minute track printed directly on the dial. And inside of that, we get to the applied metallic indices. And this is where the small details on this dial start to shine. Here, those indices taper down, getting thinner as they move towards the center of the dial. And those indices have been given a brushed treatment on top and a high polished on the sides. They add a bit of overall flair when reflecting the light. Inside of that, at the 12 o'clock position, we have Tissot 1853, when the company was founded. And moving down the dial at the 6 o'clock position, we see those ever so desirable words, Swiss made. The design on this dial has been kept sparse, and it comes across as being very clean and classic in my opinion. The date at the 3 o'clock position is printed white on black and really does blend into the dial. At first glance, I didn't even realize there was a date on this watch. If it had been done black on white, it would have stuck out like a sore thumb and ruined the distinguished look of this watch. Now that I know it's there, I am able to read the date, even though a slightly bolder weight would have been appreciated. The dial itself is a cool tone, flat black color and offers plenty of contrast against the metallic hands. In my opinion, this is a very handsome looking watch. The metallic hands on this watch are another nice small detail and pair well with the indices. While the indices taper down towards the center of the watch, here the hands taper from the center post towards the indices. It is a subtle visual treatment, but one that elevates the overall feeling of the watch and makes it feel more impressive. Now, as I mentioned before, the lume dots around the dial are ineffective. Unfortunately, the lume on the hands is not much better. Let me point out that in this photo, the lume appears much brighter than it does in real life. In my everyday lume test, I was actually able to read the lume at 5 a.m., but it was DIM, dim. Now, a lot of people would say a dress watch doesn't need lume because, it's a dress watch. And I agree, not every watch needs a lume. My issue is here that Tissot included lume on the watch and it is weak. In my opinion, it'd be better to have no lume at all than ineffective, weak lume. Moving on, the second hand on this watch is more than long enough and not only meets up with the minute track, but actually extends to the center part of the minute ticks. Unfortunately, and kind of surprisingly, the second hand is slightly off on the second part of the dial. While it does hit the markers from the top of the dial to the bottom, it is slightly misaligned going back up to the top. Now, as I mentioned before, the crystal here is sapphire, and I'm always glad to see a sapphire crystal on a watch around $200 price point. And I expect to see it on a watch with a $300 price point. Now, the strap on this watch is 21 millimeters wide at the lugs, and that is a disappointment because finding a replacement strap is going to be more of a challenge. Fortunately, it is a quality strap, roughly 4 millimeters thick, and tapers down to 18 millimeters at the last adjustment hole. There is contrasting stitching running the length of the strap, and in my opinion, helps to keep things feel a bit more contemporary. Now there is a butterfly clasp with a push button release. It is signed with a Tissot T and it has a high polished finish. Personally, I like a butterfly clasp, and I think it helps to make the watch feel more upscale, but I also understand that it's just not as popular in the US. Now I admit the first time I went to put one of these on, it was a little confusing. So here's a quick demo for those of you who haven't experienced one before. The clasp you can simply pull up and move up and down to any adjustment hole that you need. To put it on, just slip your hand through and then grab the middle part of the butterfly clasp, pull the top towards the center, grab the other part of the butterfly clasp, pull that towards the center, and then you can just take the strap and pull it through the keepers like you normally would. And you are good to go. So let's go over the specs for this watch. You have a sapphire crystal, a Swiss-made quartz movement, a diameter of 40 millimeters, a thickness of 8.5 millimeters, a lug width of 21 millimeters, and a lug-to-lug distance of 48 millimeters. And finally, let's wrap up by going over the pros and cons. For pros, aesthetics. It is a classy looking watch. It is very legible, very easy to tell the time. You do get a Swiss movement and 100 meters of water resistance. The fit and finish is also done very well. Now for cons, I have to say the lume. In my opinion, it'd be better not to include it than to have lume that's just too dim. And then lastly, The lug width, it is just an odd size if you ever want to change the strap. So my final thoughts on this watch. Now obviously there are some good looking dress watches out there for less money. The Bulliver and the Citizen, which I recently reviewed, were nice watches. Here you're paying a little bit more for some key features, including the fact that it is a Swiss made and you're getting a sapphire crystal. But you're still coming in at under $270 US. I think that means this watch is indeed a gentleman. This has been Eric from Eric's Everyday Watches, reminding you to buy the watch that you love and don't pay any attention to what anybody else says or thinks. This is your watch collection. If you like this video, if you find it helpful in any way, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.